The effects of climate change may be completely irreversible as soon as the year 2030. That's a statistic that is provided by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I'm sure you've all heard statistics like this throughout your lives, and they are rather alarming. They may cause you to be pessimistic or feel dread or just feel a general sense of hopelessness when it comes to the climate crisis, because it seems like nothing is really being done to address the issue. So I could give you a presentation on something like why you should become a vegan or why you should bike more often. And while these certainly are very good ways to reduce your carbon emissions, I know that you guys have already heard this 1,000 times before. So I instead would rather focus on an area that I think is often overlooked and is sometimes pushed aside from the debate of the climate crisis, and that is the utilization of nuclear energy. So I believe nuclear energy is a key component that is necessary if we seriously want to tackle the problem that is climate change. I think it should be used as a transitionary form of source of energy while we move from fossil fuels, which are incredibly bad for the environment, towards an ideal green and completely renewable planet or energy for our planet. So before I get into that, I just want to quickly go over some statistics regarding climate change. A lot of people, it seems, are of the impression that climate change isn't affecting them personally. However, it definitely is. One of the ways it's affecting us in the United States and Minnesota is an increase in heat waves. These heat waves are becoming more frequent. They're lasting longer. The heat wave season has expanded by like 47 days, and they are also more intense. This is a graph by the Environmental Protection Agency that demonstrates that. This is a graph that shows the increase in heavy precipitation that's occurring. So certain areas are experiencing more precipitation, and that leads to things like flooding. Meanwhile, others are experiencing a lack of precipitation, leading to things like drought. And this drought and dryness in combination with higher temperature levels is leading to more forest fires. We can see this all across the West Coast. It seems like every summer an even larger fire burns across those states. And these fires have the effect of pushing native wildlife outside of their ecosystems, forcing them to become invasive species elsewhere, which disrupts basically every ecosystem involved. And climate change also has an effect on human health as well. This graph basically shows that the years that are hot, there is more deaths due to heat stroke, which makes sense. And there's a general correlation or a general line of correlation moving upward that as the temperatures of the planet get hotter, more people are dying from heat stroke and heat-related illnesses. Luckily, we do know what is causing these issues. It is the emission of greenhouse gases, primarily pushed by the burning of fossil fuels. The three fossil fuels that we burn in America are coal, natural gas, and oil. And these have basically been our three main sources of energy since the Industrial Revolution. So you can imagine it's going to be incredibly difficult to switch our, economy away from this, since we've been using it since the beginning of industry in America. Here's just another graph to demonstrate that. You can see nuclear lingers about 10%. It's been there for the past 20 years or so. And renewables, they're about 2.5%, but they are steadily increasing. So this table shows, this is a table compiled by Robert Smith, who's a professor at Dallas, Texas, and he basically compiled the cost to construct each of these sources of energy. You see that they're all basically the same. Gas-fired is a bit cheaper, and then it also has the cost of maintenance, the cost that the energy takes once it is built. And you can see nuclear is much cheaper than all other options. And this last column is the capacity factor, which basically translates to reliability. And you can see nuclear is just as reliable as gas and coal. Meanwhile, wind and solar aren't quite as reliable yet, because they are weather dependent. So um, we need to develop more technologies to make the storage of this energy more efficient if they want to become more reliable. But in the meantime, nuclear energy is the best option, I think, for our energy sources. It's clean. It releases no carbon into the atmosphere. It's cost effective, and it is very reliable. Many people have fears regarding nuclear energy, mostly because of meltdowns due to human error and that have occurred in the past, such as Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island. And 3 Mile Island was actually the last meltdown to occur in the United States. But even so, since then, technologies have been developed to make it even more safe, such as microreactors, which you can see they can be transported in the back of trucks. They're incredibly small, so if a meltdown were to occur with one of these reactors, the effects would be pretty minimal. So yeah, hopefully you learned a little bit about nuclear energy from this speech, and talk about this with your family, your friends. Just make sure you're talking about climate change in general with them. A lot of people, it's a hot topic for sure, so a lot of people don't talk about climate change at the dinner table, but it's incredibly important to make sure that everybody knows that climate change will affect them personally at some point. So yeah, keep talking about it. Thanks for listening to my speech.